Hi, I'm Shadow of Shadow Gaming, bringing you Purring with Shadow episode 9. And today we're going to be doing work with arrays. We're going to put a little program together and see what we can do with them. So as a reminder, arrays are a way to have a set of memory all together. So it lets you set like a size of, like you need so many values, so many elements, and use them as a group rather than just individually. So let's begin. Got us a works new new class here, new file. Let's begin. So we remember an array looks something like this, where put a size in here, and then you can add values if like this if you would like. Copy this. One, two, three. There we go. There's this basic array, and we can do something like for I equals 0, I less my array dot length plus. Now let's do console.write line array at there we go. There we made us a little array. Let's see if it works here. So not I didn't tell it what type of array this was. Let's see if this yeah. That was a little bit of invalid rank specifier, so we were just going by that. I actually didn't know what it was going to be, but what it was saying I can see it's a new array, that's why it says it's rank. The size is called rank, or however many dimensions. We didn't know what type it was, so it could create it. The others were just that, also errors. But yeah, so here's this new array. You could also do something like this, and it would have been the same thing as we've just done here. Notice this time we don't have the size. Let's see. I don't think we have it. Let's see if this runs. If not, I'll add it back. But I think this. This doesn't work, so I'm going to have to pull up the documentation again. There we go. So that's called array initialization. A lot of times I see it actually like this, a little bit more spacing in it. So here's the thing with arrays. Once you create them, they're fixed size. So here, this one is 4. So let's say we try to do something. Get rid of the. Let's get rid of the printing. We'll come back to that. Let's say we have my array, and we try to access element number 4. If you remember, arrays are indexed from 0 up. So 0, 1, 2, 3 is 4 elements. So the fourth one here shouldn't exist. Equals 8. And at this point, we should get a compiler error. Their index was outside of the bounds of the array. That means we tried to put something into the array that didn't fit. You'll see that a lot of times when looping. It's really easy to get off by one error, so that's where you can do that. Let's do something else. Let's do that's the user with our program. Let's make us a little program here. Let's do console.write line. Let's say there's let's say we're entering scores or something. Let's do scores to enter. Let's do this as a right instead of a right line. That way I can put the prompt in the same line as we've done before. So let's do string user input. So then we do user input equals console.read line. Now, while user input let's do like this. Let's do I'm trying to think how I want to do count the scores. Try parse. So like user input out of scores. So what this does is if this succeeds, we have a count of scores. If it does not succeed, so we add the exclamation point here. Then we'll repeat our prompt. Let's not repeat. Let's do console.write invalid count. Put the count there. Put it in quotes. There, as we're going through this, this is looking more like a while loop rather than a do while. Yeah, maybe we switch. Let's keep on this for. And maybe we can do this actually. Let's switch. Let's do switch. I keep having second thoughts. While the while count of scores is less than 1. Let's do it like this. So 0 is not a very interesting count of scores for what we're going to do with it. Let's add a semicolon and then console.write line scores. So we'll do that to see what we got. Move this, we'll come back to. So what I'm doing is just a little error checking here. So let's say we do A scores, valid count. Their input, so there's a bug. Right, and missing space, so there's a bug. So let's try it again. Converting null literal. So A, invalid. Let's do the. See, now it suddenly doesn't make sense because of the less than 1. Let's move this prompt inside. I think that'll make it make sense. We can add some information here. Since we got the second part of this string twice, we can fix that. So let's add another variable up here. Let's do a constant string input message equals. Copy this and we'll paste it in here. Put message here. There we go. Made it a little nicer. Now, that warning. Now we should have an input that we like. It must be greater than 1. So enter A, valid. And we duplicated it. Wait a minute. Oh, what's happening here is we enter the message, or we run this and then do it again. Let's get rid of this last one. Let's enter 3. Get rid of this one. Add a space here. See if this doesn't do it. I think this does it as is. A. Yeah, there we go. We do it again, then we get the same thing. We enter a 0, back to the original prompt. We enter 1. We're done. So there we go. I'm going to say that's all right. So now we have a count. What would we like to do with the count? We're going to make an array of that size. Array of scores. And we're going to ask the user to populate those with the scores. We'll do for int I equals 0, I less than count of scores. What we could do, we could use myArray.length as well, but we have the count, so we'll just use it. Let's say for this, do right we're going to want to do a int score equals 0. Yeah, we're going to want to just do that. Let's just go ahead and do that. Do let's use another loop. We'll use a third loop of all 3 different kinds. So string. We already got a user input. Let's just use that. Equals console.readline. So while int dot try parse user input out. Let's do out score. While this is not true, do a console.write or must be an integer number. For example, again. Notice a problem on this other line. There we go. Let's prompt them for what we're asking for here. Right. Enter a score. Ideally, we never need to go any farther. But now let's add it to the array. So we'll call the array scores. That's getting pretty close there. I may not like that name being so close in these two cases. Let's do scores at I equals score. There we go. Now we'll have an array populated. We can test that here with that for loop I deleted earlier. For I equals 0, I less than scores plus console.write line scores at I. And there, now we'll be able to enter us so many scores and be able to. Let's say we enter 4 scores for A, B. I'm going to say scores can be negative. You can also have duplicates of that. Let's say we have a score of 3, 5, 2, 7. There we go, 3, 5, 2, and 7. So what we've done now is we've now accessed the array and we've let the user enter some values. We now have a little print here to print the scores. Let's do something. Let's add a console.write line here. What we could do is there's only a few we could do, make them here, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, let's do a console write line. Let's do the following. Add a /t, add a tab. Now we'll say what we're doing here, or not. Now we'll, yes, I want to save. And 4, 2, 5, 8. Now that's a problem. What happened there? If we look, all of them are 9 above each other. What's happening here is it's adding these, it's literally adding these two together. So it's taking whatever the tab character is in decimal. So I don't know what that is. If you look up the ASCII table, I'll see, I'm going to guess that it's 9 because of the addition. So what we can do there instead is, let's just do it as a interpolated string. Probably a cleaner way, but we'll just do it. This. Now we'll get what we want. That's a good bug. There we go. Do I like that actually? Might be too much of a. Tell you what, let's put them on the same line. Let's not do that. Let's keep it like this. I think I know where I want to go. Let's do 2 spaces instead of tab. Alright, we'll stop there. We're tinkering around with this. I'll tinker around with it till I like it. And let's do some operations on the array though. Right now we've got this. We're getting the scores, so find the maximum value and the minimum. What we could do is we can update it while we're doing it and just keep track of it that way, and that will work. In fact, that's probably the better idea. So let's add max score equals let's do to keep it small, we'll do max score equals int dot max value. Int min score equals int dot max. that should be min value. Basically, we're setting them the opposite of the way they go. So the max gets the minimum, the minimum gets the max. That'll be a number like 2 billion and negative 2 billion. So we'll have to deal with that. I think that's all right. Let's do 2 checks here. If score, we could use the value there, but score is greater than score max score, then max score equals score. There we go. We set max score. Now if score is less than min score, score equals score. There we go. Now we keep keeping track of our max and minimum, and we do it as we build it, so we don't have to go back through the list. But now let's say what they are. Let's hold up. Right line. Max score of score, minimum score of min score. There we go. That was easy. Let's do something else. Let's do one that we actually do need to loop over, and we could keep a running sum if we wanted to, but I see that as being more likely we would need it separately, so do a sum of score. I don't know what we're scoring, but maybe the sum matters. Let's do loop through the list. So here we could use count of scores again, just to show the other one. We could also just use scores dot length. Since we have to count, that's probably the better one. Learn more about it later, but basically this one just takes the number and uses it. This, instead of taking the number, it goes and checks this and then gets the number. So it's 2 steps. Might be more than 2. But it's 2 steps. Well, this one would be 1. So the other one's probably a little better, but we can deal with this. Let's do int sum equals 0. So now sum plus equals score. There we go. Now we've calculated the sum. Console.writeLine. Total is sum. Let's see what else. Yeah, let's do one more operation, and then we're gonna do something to the array itself. Let's do an average. I think average would be good. We have the sum already. Int average equals sum divided by count. Do count of scores. Now console.writeLine average is average. Now, if we look at this, we'll have some values here and some numbers, or crunch some numbers. Let's do something easy to calculate an average. Do 4, 6, 3, and 7. Average is 5, total is 20. Right to me. And there will be a little off with the average. We're doing an integer, and if it's not an integer, it end up evenly. So just to show that, let's do a 5. Do a 1, 3, 2, 7, 13. I have a feeling that doesn't equal 26 divided by 5 is 5 point something. So I think this is working all right. Now we've got some statistics here. So there we go. We calculated some numbers from an array. What else could we do? Do some array operations. Let's do a let's reverse the array. Let's reverse the count. So let's move it move this to the so it's easier to find. Say before this, let's do sort of we don't need that. We need /n statistics. There, I think that'll help us separate them a little better. There we go. See, to make it a little more readable, we could add spaces. Let's do let's reverse the array. So it doesn't change any of the other values, but say we do hold up, right. Let's not do that. Let's do there's a built-in way to do this, but we're not going to use the built-in way right at the moment. Let's just swap them ourselves. Let's do for var I no var int I equals 0, I less than count of scores. So we also need instead of I here, let's call this one start. So what we're going to do here is we're going to improve the algorithm. We could swap all the values one by one if we wanted to. What we can do instead, though, we're going to do from both ends. That'll make it a little easier. So we also need a int equals count of scores. So one thing to note with that one, we need to subtract 1 here. The reason for that is if we enter 4 scores, the last index is going to be 3. So 4 minus 1. So let's do this instead. Let's do end index. We'll do this as start index. That'll make it a little easier to keep track of what we're doing. So now we need a int temp equals call it scores at start index. So now scores at start index gets scores at end index. Then scores at end index. End index gets temp. So what did we just do there? This is called a swap. So the idea here is that we take the values and just swap them. The problem with that is if you do that, take the end value and put it in the start value, and then you take the start value and put it in the end value, you just wiped out your end value, and now you have 2 start values, or 2 end values, and you wiped out the start value. So to handle that, you put it in a temporary, you take a temporary one, then you swap them that, or like that. There's actually another way to do it that basically does the same thing, but it adds the detail there for it. But I'm going to say this is available. One more thing we need to do though is if start index is greater than or equal to end index. And here we need to break. If we remember, break lets you get out of the loop early. We say if the start index is greater than or equal to the index, so we're either at the same value or we've switched places. The end's now shorter than the beginning. We're done. Then if we do a for int I 0, I less than count scores plus. Now we do console dot right line /t and then scores at. So there we go. We'll reprint them. Let's add this and why we're doing this, I don't have a good reason. It just feels like a good example of something you could do that showed us that swap there. So let's run this and let's see what happens. We'll make it easy to see the swap. There we go. And I use tab again instead of spaces. There we go, though we see that he swapped, but something wrong. What happened there? So what happened is I didn't do something right. When you increment the start index, needed to do end index minus minus. So I didn't take account. Well, I was taking account of both indexes, but I kept swapping them in the last position. So now let's see what happens. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Let's do something better. So here's my print. This is working, but let's see if we can let's do a method here. Do static string print scores. Pass in a string message. So this is a local function like we've seen before. Again, we're putting this saying it's static. That means for our purposes for now, we're just saying not getting any data from outside of it. It's only what we pass in here in the parentheses, which is message. We're going to give back a string. Do I want to give back a string? Wait a minute. Let's not. Let's do void. Let's do void. So void says we're not giving back anything. We're doing something. What we're going to do is we're going to say they're responsible for formatting the message, but we're going to print. So we'll say message. We also need to give the array, I guess. So let's add int scores. Let's do something we've seen before. Let's do string dot join comma scores. So this is going to do what I was saying I want to do first. It'll number these like 4, 3, 2, comma 1. If I got that right. Let's see if we got it right before I say what it does. Let's do print scores. The scores are reversed. Let's see what this does. Forgot my semicolons. Now I think this will do the same thing almost. No argument. Do we pass in the scores and then the array? You can adjust this order however you want. I put it first because that's how I would normally do. I'm passing in some kind of set of data, I put it first and I pass the smaller stuff last. I don't think it matters though, so just how you want to do it. There we go. So the score's reversed. Yeah, I like that better. So let's fix the other print as well. Let's do print scores, passing in scores, and user entered the following scores. Let's not do that. Let's just do the simple scores are. Let's do it like that. That would have pressed. I think I clicked these squares. There we go. Now I don't feel like I need the space in between. Let's dump that. Now before the first one, now I want to add a so what I could do there is I could do a /n. That'll get what I want. Now I feel like I want to do max and min separately. Four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. Better. Change this message to the reverse scores are. What I'm doing is doing this incrementally, so I'm just changing it as I go. Max is score is. It's just a max maximum, just so they line up a little better. Move these together as well. So calculate the stuff ahead of time, and then we can. Before that. There we go. A little bit of cleanup, or should see that this should be the same. Let's do 5 just to show my reverse works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does it work? It does. There we go. There's just some statistics. There's just some scores. We allow the user to enter information. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover. It gives us a little variance or little peek at some of the things you can do. Little generation of statistics. We could format these however we want. If we wanted this maybe a table, we could do that. Got a little bit of time, we may do something. That might be harder to do in the time. Yeah, let's not. I'm thinking of how I would want to do it, and I would want the columns to be sized appropriately, and that takes a little more work than I think I'm ready to do right at the moment. So instead, let's make another function. Let's make another local function. Let's call it swap, and we'll put it in here. Let's do static void. This is going to show us something important. Int scores. Do this out of here. We need int start index, int and let's do swap scores. And this isn't a good example because we only do this once, but this should work. Let's see if we get an error. We may get an error here. Not right offhand. Yeah, there we go. So what we're doing there is we're saying this swap function, like if we try to come and use it out here, do swap scores 9 and 3. Let's see if this even does anything. I think this will be a compile error. The swap's unrecognized. Yeah, the name swap does not exist in the current context. That's what I was wanting to show. So what it's saying is the context here is everything in the braces. So swap only appears inside of here, so it's only available in this scope, this context. So this one's only available in the outer context, and as far as we can tell, that looks like the entire thing. For now, that'll be all right. In 2 lessons, we'll show that that's not the case, but for now, this is all right. Is there anything else I would like to do? No, I believe that's going to actually do it. I believe that's all I want to cover, and we'll do a little better example next time, but I think that seems adequate to me. Throughout a little bit. Let's do one more. Let's do one. Let's do a. We're gonna forego the validation on this one because we are getting a little low. So let's just say user input equals console dot read line. So get the user input. If int dot parse try parse user input out int selection. Let's call it search for. Search for. So if it fails, we could just say console.write line. Like I said, we should validate like we're doing up there since that's the format we've done, but we're not going to do that. Let's just say not find user input. It works, however, it's out here. Now we can do something like, let's say for int I equals 0, let's count scores I plus plus. Now if scores at I equals search for, so the right line value was scores at position. So we're going to make a subtle mistake here, but we'll fix it. At position I. This is in the reversed one. We'll have to keep that in track. Break. We need a boolean here. If bool is found equals false. If not is found right line value search for do value so I said there's a subtle mistake here, so see if you spotted it as we run. Of course, I forgot a semicolon. That is not the mistake. That is a mistake, but that's not the mistake. Yeah, forget another. Typo. There's a D up. Okay. Try that again. So that's not the mistake I'm referring to. There's a subtle logic mistake, not a typo. What happened? So I forgot to ask the user what we want, so they don't know what we're searching for. Let's say they were searching for A. There's one bug. We print both. Let's adjust here. Let's do right line slash in enter a value find the scores. There's one problem. Here, we learned this before, but we can do something with this. So we haven't seen return much, only in local functions. We can return here, however. This will exit us out. Or not. Oh, no, let's not do it. We can't. We still can. Yeah. Very end. Let's do return 1, return 0. So a lot of times you'll see return 0. That means your program exited successfully. If it's any other number, it means it was an error. So find A, not find A. Now if we do it again, do 5 again. Now we're going to try to find something that doesn't exist. Let's find 7. 7 was not found. We're good. Now ready for the bug. On value 3. Right in the middle of the array, the third value. Well, really bugged, but there we should have is found equals true. So there's 2 bugs. So we were looking for value 3, but we found it in position 2. That's once again off by 1 error. That's where I was trying to get. All these others were just mistakes from. We've now extended past what I was planning. So what's happening here is the off by 1 error though. So arrays start at 0, while normal people count by count. So we'd say this is 1, 2, 3 instead of 0, 1, 2. So to fix that, we could just come in here and do +1. And now I think this will be the behavior I was imagining as I was adding this in line. There we go. There we got to learn something a little extra as well. Got to learn about returns. So let's go ahead and summarize today what we've done. In today's lesson, we've experimented a little more with arrays. We've looked at how we can create an array and set it to some size. How we can then populate the array. We're taking some statistics off as we populate it. So we're saying we're taking the max score and the minimum score. The algorithm, we're using that. We set the max score and minimum score. The max score is a really small value. The max minimum score is a really high value. Then we say as we go through the list, if we find something bigger, if we find something bigger than the max score, which is a small value, we set the max score to there and we do the minimum score. We do that, so we only have to do it as we go. We don't have to search through the list again to find the maximum. We then take the sum, we just add up all the scores, and then take the average. We print out the statistics. I made them look how I wanted them. Like maybe I would want to have these over or something. Maybe I would want to do a table. I may do a table as an example later, but now this is all right. We did a local function here to print out the scores. The local function down here, what it does is it uses a method string.join. It puts commas between all the scores. That's really nice, really easy to do. Then we do a search here. This search isn't interesting, but called a linear search. The idea is you go from each value and say, is this the value I'm looking for? No. Is this the value I'm looking for? No. Is this the value I'm looking for? Yes. That's called linear search. And the reason it's called linear is something that it means that as you get more values, you have more to search through, and eventually it grows at the same rate as the values you add. Next time we're going to look at a way that we can make that better. In this case, we could do it on both of these, and they'd both be fine. But we'll learn later that it's not every time we won't do this. Linear search will work for any listing of arrays like this, as long as if we respect duplicates. Like if we have duplicates, linear search will find the first one, and that wasn't the behavior we wanted, we could adjust for that. But this is a linear search. Beyond that, we also looked at swapping here. So we reversed the array here, and we used our little swap local function here. And it does something interesting. We put it inside the for loop here. What that does is that means we can't access swap on the outside. It tells us that the name doesn't exist. That's because it's in the for loop, in that scope. So these braces are a lot of times the find does that. So like I can't use temp outside of the swap function here because it's declared inside here. Same thing, I can't use the swap function outside of the for loop because it's declared inside there. Other than that, that's pretty much, we swap the scores. To do that, we just start at the beginning of the scores. Swap the scores again. We start at the beginning, we get the start index and the end index, and we swap those positions. Decrement the start to here, decrement the end. We do that until they're equal, or the start index is bigger than the end index, and at that point, you know you're done. That's pretty much it. We do here in the search. We also looked at how we can end early, and for now, we're just going to say return 1 and return 0 is all right. So return 1. The common nomenclature is that return. There we go. You return something net that's not a 0, your thing will show you that something failed. And executed 5 minutes ago, took 11 seconds, and failed. Exit code 1. The 1 here is what we set. If we turn that to another number, we'll get a different exit code. The other one we did was a 0, and executed 4 minutes ago and took that long. That's just a successful run. You would get a 0, and that's rarely common in command line, so you might see that again. So that's pretty much the program we did, the different things we've looked at, a little bit we learned. Next time we're going to go a little deeper, and what I'm imagining is maybe I'm imagining, let's try to do the, right here the user had to put these in. I'm imagining instead, let's sort the array, just sort the values and put them in the right order, and then we're going to learn of another search. I think that's actually all I want to discuss. I guess one thing to mention, I'm not going to show it here, but there's actually another way to do this reverse here. We don't have to do it ourselves. There's actually a built-in function that'll do that for you. going to pull up the documentation for it, but not seeing it offhand. Yeah, I might have to find it, but basically there's a built-in reverse, and we will look at that in the future, but I think for now I'm just going to use the one I built here. Learn how to do little small algorithms. Learn how to use the built-in one later. Built-in one's better though, because better in the long run, because you're not going to make mistakes like I forgot to decrement end index. So when you do array dot the reverse, that's what it's called. So if you want to look that up, if you do array dot reverse, it'll handle that for you. You don't have to worry about messing it up. It can figure it out unless you start messing with it. But I'm gonna leave it at there then. So thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.